Hi, welcome back to another episode of ColdstreamRodshop. I'm Derek Fraser. This week's video, we're going to keep on working on the International Roadster. Last week, we got the driver's side quarter panel all assembled and all the sheet metal pieces and holes drilled on the inside. Currently, this side is just tacked in place. So the plan is now to go and start working on the driver's side. We've done a little bit of work on the driver's side because I put the original drip rail and drip rail extension into it on last week's video. So got some work done, but what I have to do now is I have to basically salvage the B-pillar plus all the supporting sheet metal pieces across the top here, make the repairs, and then start getting it in on this quarter panel. And then that shouldn't take too long to do, but then we're going to tackle the upper deck lid, which I described in last week's video as being more than likely quite a bit of a challenge. It looks okay on the top here, but I think there's almost half of an inch of body fill in some places here. So I'm gonna have to clean all of this off, basically look and see if I can work any of the metal. My strongest suspicion though is that I'm more than likely gonna have to replace the metal from here back. There doesn't look to be any dents on this section here, but there's also some holes and some repair work we're going to have to do. I don't have one of these, and it's a bit of a challenge to make it from scratch. Anything is possible if you put the time into it, but I think right at this stage, and my assessment is that strip it, try and replace the back 2/3 of the metal, and then hopefully that'll bolt up to this International Roadster. So follow along and see how far we get on this week's video. Now that I have the B-pillar welded up, that same stress crack that I showed you a few minutes ago, or a second ago, I welded it into the quarter panel, much like we did in the previous episode. I didn't really show that because, I covered on the previous episode. Essentially, I drill holes. Everything gets clamped with all of these vice clamps and then some more that are hanging over on the wall. Gets clamped into place, and I drill 3/16 holes, turn the welder up, and basically weld through till I get penetration. It's welded along here, and clamped there. And then also it's welded, can't show it, sorry, it's upside down, but I weld through here all along the way with clamps onto it. So more or less imitating what Ford did with their spot welds. Now, one of the other things I had to do with this B-pillar, there is a plate in here that the latch hooks into. That plate inside with the threaded holes is missing. So basically it's just a piece of 1/4-inch plate about this big with 2 1/4-inch 20 holes tapped into it, about an inch, I think it's 1.5 inches apart. So that just fits up inside of a little pocket right in there. I think you can see it right here. So that was fixed up. Then the roof brackets, I'm not sure what you want to call it, but the bracket that sticks out that the convertible roof hooks onto had one of those made up, and it's welded in place. So you can see the weld underneath here where I had to weld up the stress cracks into it. Now I welded both sides. I did not grind this side. I left it alone, but I dressed the other side because the sheet metal here still has to be cut the same way. It's going to be cut right here and drop down the same way we did in the previous episode. So this is the passenger side quarter panel where we knocked that sheet metal down to simulate where the originals were done, and there's a piece of wood that will go in there and slide in, and that's what you're going to basically tack the upholstery to. So going to carry on with this one. We still have to fix the deck lid support. I've got to drill these holes here. I'm going to pre-drill the hinge bracket, the hinge holes for the deck lid. Stumbling for words here, I'm sorry. Now, one thing I did have to do on this was a Brookfield second, so there was something wrong with it, and we should expect there's something wrong with it when we buy seconds. There was a great big split right along this edge, so I had to weld that up and dress that up. And one thing I noticed when they laser cut this particular one. I may have to add material on here. Now, it all depends. I'll take the upper deck lid, I'll place it along there and make sure that I have enough meat where the screws go through. If I don't, I'll add some sheet metal in here and make that good. So anyways, we're making progress on this. Hopefully we'll have this ready to mock up and stick on the side of the body here shortly. So I carried on with the quarter panel here. I made the repair to the support right there. I filled it all in and I cleaned it up. And then, like I said I was going to, I drilled all the holes across the top. This panel wasn't trimmed so much so that I couldn't drill the holes in. I've got enough material around the holes. So I've got all 4 holes there drilled for the upper deck lid. And I've got the holes pre-drilled for the hinge pin, the bracket that goes in behind here. So the pin goes actually through the center, and then there's 2 screws on the other side. Those holes will have to be opened up later on. And this is spot welded in place. I think you can see the outline of where I've drilled the holes and welded through and then sanded them. So that's in place right now. This panel is ready to trial fit onto the Roadster body. But before I do that, the next step is to work on this upper deck lid. Now, it's a little bit more challenging than the lower deck lid because the reveal on the top here across the back, I can do that. This could be done with a bead roller, and then this shape and this shape here in the top of the panel would be done with the English wheel. If I were to go further up here, I could tip this line and then with a tipping die to bring it back, and then across the top here, I'm not sure yet, maybe with a form or something. But the first thing I needed to figure out how to do is the panel comes around, it folds over, and you've got this lip here. So it's kind of, I don't know if you can see it, it folds over on itself. So it's a little bit difficult to make unless you've got a really good brake. What I did, I just took a piece of metal here and I put it in my brake and I bent both of these just a little bit, I think about 30 degrees. And then what I did is I took this piece over here on the stump, and then with the plastic hammer, I basically tried to imitate that shape, which would go there. The overhang is 5/8 of an inch. My trial piece here is 3/4. But nevertheless, the point was to see if I can do this without welding it on. I don't want to have a welded edge. I want to have a bent over edge here, kind of like the way it is normally. So tomorrow what I'm going to do is I will get a piece of tracing paper and then I will lay that out and then lay it out on a piece of sheet metal. And then we're going to try and make the upper deck lid. Well, I decided that I was going to try and make this back panel all in one piece. Worst comes to worst, I'll make as much of it in one piece and I'll do the second piece. So what I did, I went over to the back of my Brookville here. A little dirtier, but I made a paper template for this whole back piece. Just made it out of body paper, masking paper. So here it is right here. I've laid it out. Essentially, actually cut there's the top. Here's the top piece here. So I made it in one large piece, made marks onto it, cut off the top piece, laid out the outside dimensions, allowed for the 7/8 flange to fold down here. This is the lip that folds under itself on the bottom here. And then what I did was I just used a razor and I cut out these sections here. And then I drew them out on the steel panel. Now, normally I'd make this out of 18 gauge. Most of the stuff I work with is 18 gauge, but I kept measuring up the Brookville body there, and it's 1 millimeter or 20 gauge. And even when I measured the original rear deck lid on the best piece of metal, it's 1920 gauge. So one thing with using this slightly thinner gauge was that when I did a trial of bending it over to do that flange, like I showed you previously, I did a much nicer job, and it's much easier to work. And I think that once this panel has all of the bends into it and the foldovers and the crown and everything else, it's going to be just fine. So this section here will come off. The first thing that I'm going to do, and I'll set the time-lapse camera up, I'm going to put a crown in the center of this section here, kind of like I did on the lower deck lid. That's the first step. The second step is going to be to run my bead roller across this line and form this line. The third step, I'm going to fold this lip over. So I'll try and set up this time lapse for that. Oh, and the fourth step is going to be to tip this edge up, and then I'll fold these edges over. So if all goes well, we're going to have a nice panel. If not, I'll make it in two. So let's see how it goes. So hopefully what you saw from the time-lapse video there, you saw me using the English wheel to put a bit of the crown on the top of this panel. I went both directions this way and then side to side as well to kind of get a little bit of a crown to it. Then you should have seen me bead roll this edge here all the way around. And then you would have seen me fold these edges over. Now, because of the way my break is, I basically have to fold one edge part of the way flip it around and bend it the rest of the way, and basically hammer form it by hand the rest of the way. There is also like a bit of an arc in this as well. What I did is I used a shrinker along this edge to get that curvature there, and then I just went over to the other 32 Ford, our 32 Ford Roadster there, basically checking, you know, the curvature on the back of that panel. So what's up next is that I am going to put the tipping dies in and tip this panel up along this edge. I'll set up the time-lapse video for that. Once I tip that up, then I'm going to bend the flanges, and then the last thing I'm going to do, I have to round this edge over. So it's going well so far. I think we're going to get it in one piece, but we'll see. Hopefully what you can see from the time-lapse video was me tipping this edge up because it's curved this way, so I can't put it on the brake. You basically have to tip it up on the tipping dies. The one thing that happened as a result of tipping it up, this panel, this crease here naturally flattened everything out. It shouldn't be flat because we've got a slight curvature here. We need to have a curvature there. So what you saw me do, hopefully, was I used the planishing hammer to go up and down here and stretch some of this material out. And then at the same time, went over to the stretching dies there to stretch this material out so that now we've got basically about the same curvature on the back as we do here. I did take this and I did lay it over on the back of the Roadster, and it does have the same basic curvature to it. So next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these edges over here and here. And then the last thing is I'm going to have to make like a wooden buck or something in order to bend this top section over, because it's a rounded curve. I don't know if you can, I'll show you here. This line, which I tipped, is quite sharp, but this one up here is quite rounded, so I basically have to pound it over something. So follow along, we're making progress here. I haven't screwed it up yet. So there's the edges hammered over. I was going to set the time-lapse video up again, but unfortunately I broke the camera mount. Camera lady is not going to be happy, but anyways, we'll have to try and glue it up or fix it up. So essentially all I did, I mounted this on a piece of, it was a plywood shelf that I had. It had a relatively sharp edge, and I used my nylon hammer to just ever so slowly tap it over the edge. Double check my measurements. I needed to be 36 3/8 at this point from side to side, and 36 1/2 at that point from side to side. So got a little tiny bit of finessing, got a hit, like I made a little boo-boo there, so I'm going to knock that out with the hammer in a couple seconds. So all that's left to do, which is going to be a little challenging, is now to bend this lip over to, like I said previously, to roll up over this edge. So it kind of looks as though I am basically have made it all in one piece. Haven't failed yet, so we're going to carry on with it. It's looking good so far. So we're down to the last couple steps of finishing off this upper deck lid panel. Like I described, the last thing to do here now is to take this edge that's tipped up and roll it over. What I did, I used my profile tool here to go off of the back of the our Brookfield Roadster, and then what I then did, went into my wood shop and made this little wood buck here, basically to simulate the shape. Oh, wrong side. The shape that we want to get, like that. So the plan right now is to take this panel, put it on there, and then beat it over with a nylon hammer. So I'll set the time-lapse video up, and hopefully we can capture this with some degree of accuracy. So we're almost there with the upper deck lid panel. Right now we've got the edges folded over. I'm not sure if I filmed that or not, but I tried to. And we have the flange folded over here on the top. Pounded that over a wooden buck. And then the other thing that I've done is I've removed the reinforcing piece that goes underneath here. This is original 32 Ford stuff. I got it off of the these pieces here. They were they were pretty rough. I had to cut it out and do a lot of grinding to get it out of there. As I said before, this this tray here was welded in the wrong place. It's supposed to go up from underneath. It was welded on top. I actually found that there was actually 3 layers there, so there must have been another deck lid at some point in time welded in there too. Had to clean that off, but right now we've got the brace here all cleaned off, got it all straightened out, clamped in place. So I'm going to weld that in place. The next thing we've got to do is actually put another piece of sheet metal across the back of here behind where the bolt holes are going to go. And then it's basically ready to epoxy prime underneath and get ready to bolt to both rear quarter panels. So there's the bottom of the upper deck lid. The reinforcing rib has been spot welded on and dressed. And then what I also needed to do was put basically a double layer reinforcing tab here on each side. So I did that. And then what I did is I took this quarter off of the Roadster on here. I had it dummied on before. It wasn't welded because, like I said, I'm going to epoxy prime the inside of these panels before I put them together. But what I did is I took this panel and let's see if we can, I set it up on the quarter panel. I aligned it, and then I used vice grips to hold it in place, and then I marked all the holes and drilled all the holes. I did that for both sides, so right now that upper deck lid panel is basically ready for the assembly stages. So like the quarter panels, I'm going to epoxy prime the underneath of this. Now, if there's a little bit of surface rust there, I'll clean that off, of course, before I do it. Now, the lower deck lid panel, I had made these up probably a year and a half ago. I made a few of them up when I was building the Brookville Roadsters. I made some copies. They're a little dusty right now, but I dug this one out. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use this lower deck lid. This is the lower deck lid stiffener that I also made. We'll put a link at the end of the video to those videos of when I made these and how I made them. I'm not going to make extras because I actually have these pieces here. So I'm going to clean those up. I'm going to install the deck lid stiffener. The deck lid stiffener basically just goes on the inside, goes in, goes in here, and then this edge is folded over it just like you do a door skin. So I'll clean both of those up tomorrow. I will skin it, so to speak, and then I'll get them ready. So these 4 pieces will be basically ready to have all of the epoxy primer and the inside epoxy primered over the next day or so. So here we are. I've got both quarter panels, the insides epoxy primed. The lower deck lid, I put it together and put the stiffener onto it and rolled the edge over. We got a coat of epoxy primer on that. I don't have the holes drilled here yet because I'm going to assemble these on the car. Once I have the upper deck lid in, then I'll make sure I've got these holes in the right place. They usually go in exactly the same place, but I want to give it a chance just in case it's a 16th off or something like that. We'll put it in the right place. So really hoping to get a little further more in this episode, but unfortunately the weather got cold here. I had to wait to warm up a little bit so I could do this. And then also making the upper deck lid, as you saw, there was a lot of steps in doing that, especially trying to pull it off in one piece like I did. I think it turned out exceptional. Basically as good or as close to as good as what you can buy. So I'm very happy with that. So next episode, what we'll do is like I said, we'll put both of the quarter panels on the car, put the upper and lower deck lid in, and we'll carry on with the assembly of the International Roadster. So please join us next week as we carry on with it. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe, and have a great week, everybody. Take care.